Cool. I think we should get going. Welcome, everyone. Thank you for joining me in this short session on Drupal security management. We're going to cover quite a lot of ground, and I'm hoping that we can get everything done. Some of the stuff will be discussed in a little less detail than I'd like, but that's cool. Feel free to ask questions, and we can dig into it outside of the session as well. So what we're going to be looking at today is basically security management on Drupal specifically, whereas a lot of the stuff can be applied more generally to different platforms. But we'll be looking at security management and some of the techniques that I've used and that we've come across in Amazy.io, and just different ways of thinking about this stuff that you may find helpful, particularly if you're doing portfolio management of like multiple sites. So what we're going to be looking at today is basically 4 little sections here. I'm going to go over initially what we're trying to achieve with this talk, what we want to really dig down into. We're then going to look at different ways of automating security. That's going to look at 2 things in particular: tools like Dependabot and Renovate, whether or not they're appropriate for your particular context, as well as site auditing via the site auditing Drupal module or Drutney, and finally just stepping back and seeing how we can pull all of this stuff together. Right, so the first thing we're going to look at is really the context of this talk. And the idea is that my background at Amazy.io is that I basically am part of a team that looks after dozens of sites, right? And these sites are not necessarily sites that we've built. We've inherited these sites, and they come, they may be years old. They may be rush jobs. They may be really well architectured and well tested sites. But we have to come up with strategies for managing the security for this whole range of different sites. And the ideal really is that a site comes in, all of the modules, core and everything are completely up to date. Your system settings are secure. That's been audited. It's tight. And there are tests for everything. If you got this, you're good, right? But of course, that's not at all what things look like. Generally, things come in. They could be completely in shambles in terms of versioning. You've got no confidence from a system security perspective in the setup, and the testing is basically you just clicking through the site when you deploy, making sure things aren't broken, right? That is, I would say, generally what we're looking at when we inherit sites. In my context, that's what I see very often. Right, so we have a problem when we inherit sites like this. The problem being, in order to bring those sites up to the ideal, we're going to have to spend time on this. And the problem with that is, of course, that you have a lot of other work to do. If you're dealing with 80, 100, 200 sites, and each one of those take, say, a week to bring up to standard, that's not going to work. And secondly, somebody has to pay for the time, particularly if you're doing time and materials billing. Either you or the client needs to pay for somebody to sit and actually bring that site up to code. And we could do that, or you could do that as part of your business, your cost of doing business, or you can have a really good project manager that can convince your clients that they need to spend their money on this project. But in some, at the end of the day, somebody needs to actually go ahead and pay for that work. So that's not always going to happen either. Right, so part 2, robots to the rescue. Here, I'm really going to be speaking about Dependabot and what it does in the context of this. Now, just remember, our context is dozens of sites, are different versions of Drupal, different levels of developer competency, and so on. And I've said before, and I agree that I see here, thank you, Dependabot, the Panda bike, nice. Right, so Dependabot, I think, is an amazing tool, as in Renovate, as is Renovate. And I think we should be using it and these tools as often as possible, right? We should absolutely be using them. If you don't know what these tools are, essentially they're just apps that connect to your repos. They take a look at your dependency graphs and they figure out, like, okay, this version of the module you're using is out of date, or this is a security update, and often they'll issue PRs against your code that actually does the update for you. It's amazing, right? But it doesn't always work, right? And the reason that it doesn't work for cases like I've been describing with dozens and dozens of sites is that the best case for Dependabot or Renovate tends to be you're working on a single project and there are system tests available. The system tests are really important because if you have them, you can actually automate the entire process of Dependabot submitting a PR to fix a security issue. You can then have another bot respond to Dependabot to run the tests. If the tests work, then you can have another bot that integrates and releases a new version of the software. It's really impressive what you can do. The problem is, if you don't have all of this stuff, or your projects are patched to high heaven, somebody needs to look at these projects and these PRs before they come in. And these PRs that come in from Dependabot or Renovate are really a double-edged sword, right? Because in some cases, for single projects, they can actually give us information about the state of that project. They can tell us how many security issues we have in it. That's something that Renovate can do. That's something that Dependabot can do. It gives you a good sense of what the state of that project is, even if you just had to look at those PRs, right? The problem is that if you've got hundreds of sites, just having these PRs hit you day in and day out becomes what Stephen Savage just calls an information hose, where you're just drowned in information. You're just drowning in information. Anybody who's written a Slack bot that they think, oh, cool, it would be good to have information come into a Slack channel, knows exactly what I'm talking about. If the channel is too busy, everybody just ignores it, or feels completely overwhelmed by what's coming in. So these Dependabot and Renovate PRs can be information hoses, right? So what do we want to achieve? What are we really looking at here? With these dozens of sites, we want to have that same information that we would get from Dependabot or Renovate submitting these PRs, but we want to get that information on our own terms. That is, really, we want to know what the security state or status of our entire portfolio looks like. Right, and this is the main point of this talk, I suppose, is that when it comes to Drupal security management, the very first step in automation has to be visibility. If you have dozens of sites and you don't know what's going on inside of those sites, you're dead in the water from the get-go, and no integration of any other apps like Dependabot are going to help you. So the first tool I just want to quickly discuss is Trivy. I'm going to have to discuss it really quickly as well. Trivy basically is a tool that you can run on any of your projects. It integrates with Git, it integrates with file systems and container images, and it gives you the information that you would have from something like Dependabot issuing PRs. Basically, it'll scan through your dependency charts, and it will return all of the security vulnerabilities that it has found, link you to the CVEs. You can see over here just an example of the output here. And interestingly, Trivy is really cool in that you can integrate Trivy into Harbor. And Harbor is an open source container registry that works kind of like Docker Hub. And what you can do is with that is as you push up images, as you deploy projects. If you're integrating with Harbor, you can get Harbor to kick off webhooks to tell you that it has just scanned a particular image and whatnot. And you can then use that information to integrate into your own processes later. We'll come back to Trivia in a second. Importantly, dependencies aren't the whole story. If you've got Renovate or Dependabot running, or even Trivy, it doesn't really tell us everything that we need to know about the state of our application. What we also need to worry about is, what is the actual live site doing? Is there anything weird or insecure about that, right? For example, are there sensitive files exposed? I've seen people dump their entire database into the public files directory. If somebody does that, we want to know about that, right? Are there insecure default settings? Is like, have we enabled HSTS, or is the root account named administrator? Do we want to change that? So one way of going about this is, unlike the dependency management scanning, we want to actually be able to audit our sites. And auditing our sites gives us this information about the running site, right? And there are two modules that I'll just quickly mention here. The Drupal site audit module is fantastic. It can be integrated into, it can be run and integrated into a lot of different workflows. We use Drutney. We could have easily used the site audit module for everything that we do, but I'll just give you a quick overview of what Drutney does. I see I'm showing Trivy here. Sorry, that's a thinker from my side. So Drutney basically acts as a vulnerability scanner, as an my Drutney stuff is all wrong here. I'm very sorry. Drutney essentially acts as an audit tool that you can run on a running site that will check things like your databases, insecure files. I would just say go take a look at Drutney. You can integrate it into a whole lot of different workflows, but we need to move along because I have 3 minutes left. Okay, so pulling it all together. The background to the problem is portfolio management of dozens of sites, legacy sites. Full-blown dependency automation may not be possible at first because of the information hose problem. What can we do, right? As I said, the first step is really to get visibility. With things like Trivy, which just report the state of the dependency tree, and with things like the site audit module, or with Drutney, that report the state of the actual running site, we can gather a whole bunch of information automatically from our running portfolio, depending on how you choose to integrate those, right? For example, I've done this in several different contexts. One of the ways that we've integrated these tools is by using Ansible, actually connecting to the sites, running the tools on those sites, and bringing the data back to a central repo that's just pushed into a Google Sheet. Another way that we've done it is inside of Lagoon, which is a platform that we work on in IO and that drives our platform that simplifies cloud deployment, management, and so on. We've integrated Trivy and Drutney into Lagoon. And essentially the way that works is, with Trivy at least, we have a harbor where we push all of our images, and every scan that's done inside of Harbor is pushed into Lagoon. And we have all of those facts available in a way that we use, and we use it in a variety of contexts. Via our GraphQL API, we present it as summarized dashboards to users, but that's just one way of doing it. All right, I have 1 minute left. Let's pull this all together. Yeah, in summary, understand your automation tools in light of your context. If you're running millions of old sites, it's probably not going to be able to just enable Dependabots. Don't only focus on your core and module versions, audit the site state as well, and integrate your data and summarize it in ways that encourage or support action. Cool. All right. Anyway, I think we're done. We're out of time. Yeah, I will just leave it at that. Thank you very much.
That's amazing. You got that done in 15 minutes.
Cool. That was a lot. Thank you very much. I'm happy to chat about this in the in here. I think this is still open. So any questions, we can chat about it here, and we can also jump onto the Amazy room as well. Cool. I think we can stop it there. Cool, Scott. Anything we need to do to stop this?
Leave. I wonder if it's leave. When you hit leave, it throws everyone out. So, all right. Thanks a lot, please.
All right.
Bye-bye.
Okay, cool. Thanks, Scott. Have a good one. Cheerio. Bye.